Hey guys, welcome back to the MCU HQ, and this is my review of episode Trace of Moon Knight. We are halfway through the show already. I wish they would do longer seasons. I liked episode 2, but I'm not going to sit here and pretend it was amazing. It was a step down from the incredible episode 1, and gladly episode 3 was a step back up. I really enjoyed this episode. A lot of people are saying it's the worst of the 3 so far. I disrespectfully disagree. This episode was fantastic. I think episode 2 pulled the curtain back a bit too much. It answered questions that I wasn't ready to have answered yet, and I did find that slightly disappointing, but this episode goes back to what they did in episode 1. It was one of the reasons I loved it so much. Questions, mystery, badass. Also, it's worth noting, Mohamed Diab directed this episode. He did not direct episode 2. His style is nice to see back. Some of the different things that happened in this episode, the way things are shot. Mohamed Diab has such a great style for Moon Knight, and I was so glad to see his name back on the credits for this episode. First of all, Mark Spector is finally at the forefront, which is nice because after all, Mark Spector is Moon Knight. That's not to say Steven's not there anymore. Steven is still here. He plays a pivotal role in this episode. He's a very important character. He gets the standout moment of the episode, in my opinion, goes to Steven, but for most of this episode, we are following Mark Spector. And the way Oscar Isaac carries himself as both people. You could see it in episode 2, but it's even more apparent here. There was some great acting where he would flip from Mark to Steven on the fly or back, and he would do it in the same shot, but he would carry himself differently, and you really felt like he became a different character. If one of these two personalities was not interesting, this show would suck, but luckily Mark is just as compelling as Steven. Granted, it's in a different way. Steven is everyone's sweetheart, he's their baby. Mark is a different character than Steven, but they're still both compelling, and when it flips over to one, I miss the other in the sense that I like seeing them on screen, but I'm not just waiting for them to come back. I enjoy following that other character. And I am beyond happy that they introduced Mr. Knight in episode 2, because now that Mark and Steven can both kick ass, it's pretty cool. My phone's blowing up. My friends won't shut up. Now, without getting too much into the story of this episode, because I don't want to give anything away, and they pack a lot in this episode, I almost just skipped a non-spoiler section altogether. It's most comparable to something like Raiders of the Lost Ark. You can see they probably borrowed a couple things from that, got a couple ideas from that, especially with some of the things they do with Arthur Harrow. Not going to get too much into it, but it does feel Raiders of the Lost Ark-esque. And as someone who thinks Raiders of the Lost Ark is one of the greatest films ever made, I enjoyed that. And once again, they are just not going to let us forget that Arthur Harrow walks around with glass in his shoes, because every footstep he takes, you can hear glass crunch. As mentioned at the beginning of this video, this episode goes back to some of that mystery and intrigue that I loved so much in the first episode. Not going to get too much into it without spoiling anything. We'll talk about it in the spoilers section of this video, but it was so nice to see, I don't want to say a return to form, but a return of some of those things that hooked me on the show initially. We actually get more action this time around. Action we can see, action on screen. Moon Knight gets to kick ass on screen in this, and you see just how cool he fights. And all I'm gonna say is that I was getting these vibes. Now, the ending to episode 1 was great. I didn't think it would be topped, but holy shit. I think they topped it with this episode. The last 5 minutes of episode 3 of Moon Knight are both visually and from a storytelling standpoint beautiful. Episode 3 was beautiful. I can't wait for episode 4. And I mentioned this last time, but it's even more apparent here. I love that this show is actually paced like a show. But there you guys go. That's all I got for non-spoiler on episode 3 of Moon Knight. I am going to dive into spoilers. Couple things I want to talk about before I go here. If you have not seen it yet, Go watch it. Solid episode. Spoiler time. Jake Lockley is here. Am I certain it's Jake Lockley? Yeah, because Jake Lockley is the third personality in the comics. He's a taxi driver. Mark woke up in the back of a taxi. And yeah, Steven said it wasn't him, wasn't Mark, so Jake Lockley's here. And also Mark and Steven are getting tight. So I can imagine by the end of this, all three personalities are probably just going to be working together. It's three dudes in one body working to solve problems and finding out which guy is necessary for what problem. Also, I saw the other day, if Doctor Strange hit Mark Spector's body, would 3 astral projections come out? I want to know. I want to talk about Steven before I get into talking about the action sequence in this episode, which I loved. Steven's a treasure, isn't he? He was so happy when they went into the Pyramid of Giza, and then when he had to come back out to like solve the constellation thing, and he was just in the dirt doing it. He loves it so much, and I love that he has his place in the team, you know. Action. Action's fun. This episode has fun action. Mission accomplished. There is Moon Knight and Mr. Knight action. And it's not just, you know, Mr. Knight gets his butt kicked, then Moon Knight scurries across a roof and throws a guy on a spike. No, like they're both, there's actual fight. Mr. Knight, not so much. I mean, we did get the Mr. Knight fight in episode 2, but oh my god, it was hilarious in this one, because Mark's about to kill this dude, or Moon Knight, I'll refer to as Moon Knight and Mr. Knight when they're in the masks, so it's not confusing. Moon Knight's about to kill this dude. Mr. Knight takes over. He calls a timeout, gets stabbed immediately, then gives the body back to Moon Knight. That was hilarious. And yeah, we finally got to see what Moon Knight can actually do on the screen, how powerful he is. He's not invincible. I like that. I like that he was getting like hit a couple times and his like cape got yanked and it like made him stumble. But he keeps going, because Moon Knight, he's like Punisher or Daredevil, where he will fight until he literally cannot fight anymore, and that's what he's doing. Even when he's getting thrown around, he got speared like 4 times, one of which was through the hand, a couple through the chest. He just got up and kept going. I mean, obviously he can take it, that's what he can do, but it's still cool to see him that he's just relentless, he'll keep going. The dude pulled a spear out of his chest like it was nothing, and also we got to see Moon Knight and Mr. Knight without their masks on. Oh my god, Mr. Knight without his mask on. Looked so good. And yes, another fantastic Mr. Knight sequence. This is why I say Steven steals the episode, because at the end, well, they say at some point, the gods are like, hey, you mess with the sky again, Khonshu? We're gonna imprison you in stone, and that won't be fun. And then, at the end, Khonshu, he needs to turn back the sky so they can see the constellations from whenever it was. And so he does it, and him and Mr. Knight are both like turning it back and holding it in place. And then they start trapping Khonshu in stone, and he's falling. And there's this shot where it shows why Stephen Grant is like the perfect superhero, because he just wants to do good so much. And it was a lot of people's favorite shot of the episode was the scene when Oscar Isaac switched from Mark Spector to Stephen Grant in the shot and carried himself differently. My favorite scene is at the end when Khonshu's on the ground. He's defeated. He can't go anymore. And Layla has not yet finished looking at the constellation thing. And Steven's on his knees. Mask is off at this point. And with one hand, he's struggling to hold the sky in place. And he's basically doing all the heavy lifting. It was so good. It was so good. But yeah, then they trap Khonshu in stone, and then Steven falls. The Mr. Knight suit's gone, so they just don't have the suit anymore. And so I wonder if episode 4, I would imagine the first half is probably them being like, we don't need the suit. It's okay. We can do this. And then the back half is like, nah, we're going to need the suit. And then they have to go free Khonshu and do that. Also, all the other gods are little shits, aren't they? That's it. That's all I want to talk about. That was a great ending. I loved it so much. I can't wait for episode 4. I love this show so much. But what did you guys think of Moon Knight episode 4? I can't remember the title, so it is what it is. Leave your thoughts down in the comments below. Also leave a like on the video, subscribe, click on the bell icon to receive all notifications from the MCU HQ. This can be it. Have a great day, guys.